And good afternoon, producer Susan. How are you today? Is it cold enough where you are?
It is currently 8 degrees. It's supposed to get down to -2. The real feel of, I don't know, -20.
Right. Well, today's January 21st, the day after the inauguration. Did you watch it?
I watched parts of it.
Did you watch his speech?
Yep. Well, I mean, he had a couple different speeches.
Well, the one where the swearing in speech.
No, I don't think I saw that
Okay,
one.
that was his probably his better speech. The second speech, I thought he got a little too vindictive and whatnot. But the first is his swearing in speech. I thought was pretty good. But anyway, so let's not dwell on that. I mean, because the news has been all over this, because this is the situation with Jerzee Joe. It's news and perspective you won't hear on TV. And you heard all about the inauguration on TV. So we're not going to spend a lot
Yep.
of time talking about that. But you want to hear what we are going to talk about?
Yeah, what's on the agenda?
Well, now you read George Orwell's 1984, right?
Yep.
Well, we're going to give you a quote from New Zealand's Prime Minister, who must have been a big fan of George Orwell, because she came out with a quote about if you want to hear the truth, you need to hear it from the government and only the government, which my jaw dropped. Stupidest thing I've heard all week was on Friday, Biden gave a speech in which he told the world that the Equal Rights Amendment had been adopted and it's now the law of the land. Well, folks, it hasn't been adopted, and we'll tell you why it's so stupid that the President of the United States and the people who wrote that speech and proofread it allowed him to go on air claiming that the Equal Rights Amendment to the U.S. Constitution had been adopted and it hadn't been. We have two runners up to the stupidest thing I've heard all week segment. We'll tell you about a 2019 lawsuit by an environmental group in California, which may have contributed to the devastation caused by those recent fires. And another runner-up, I think you and I have traded some emails. We're going to tell you about how the city of Boston spent 35 million federal tax dollars to buy 125 electric school buses, and why those new buses won't be reducing CO2 emissions, even though that's supposedly why they were bought. You know who Bill Maher is, right? The talk show host
Yeah.
slash comedian. Well,
Yeah.
he lives in California. We got a little 3-minute clip of him criticizing the city and county of Los Angeles and the state of California for not doing a better job of preventing and handling those wildfires. Um, the U.S. Treasury came out with the December Treasury report that tells you how much money the government took in and how much they spent for the year. So we'll give you an update of how much tax revenue was taken in and how much was spent for the year and how that compares to uh, 2017, which is the last year of the old Obama tax plan. And our taxpayer loose shot segment this week comes to us from Jackson, Mississippi, where a homeowner confronts two armed home invaders in his house at 2:30 in the morning. I'm sure they were just there for a cup of coffee, right?
Yeah, sure.
Two guys break into your lock house at 2:30 in the morning. They were they
Yep.
were they were just there trying to be friendly, right?
Yep.
All right. So here's our quote of the week. Now, this I didn't catch this when it first came out, but this was 2 years old from the Prime Minister of New Zealand, who was at the time was Jacinda Ardern, and she must have been a big fan of George Orwell's book 1984 when she said, and she gave this in a speech: "We will continue to be your single source of truth. Unless you hear it from us, it's not the truth." I mean, how jaw-dropping is that to tell people that the only truth that the government will be the only people telling you the truth. And if you hear it from anybody else, how many times have we heard about government lying to the people?
Oh, all the time.
And that was the whole thing about George in 1984, that the government kept rewriting history, telling people that the truth was a lie. And here she says, "We will continue to be your single source of the truth. Unless you hear it from us, it is not the truth." I
Yeah.
mean, jaw-dropping that she would make a claim like that, that government is your only source of the truth, and then you didn't hear it from us, it's not the truth.
Yeah.
Jaw-dropping, truly jaw-dropping. All right. Stupidest thing I've heard all week. You probably didn't hear it, but on Friday, President Biden kind of gave his farewell speech, right?
Yep.
You probably didn't listen to it.
I did not.
But in that farewell speech, he was kind of, running down a list of his accomplishments. And he declared in that speech that the Equal Rights Amendment to the Constitution, which, had it been ratified, would have been the 28th Amendment to the Constitution, he said it had been ratified and is now the law of the land, when in reality, nothing could be further from the truth.
There's only 27 amendments.
Well, this would have been the 28th.
Yeah, but there's only 27.
Right. Well, he's saying that it had been ratified and it has now become the 28th Amendment. Well, it hadn't. And let me tell you how incredibly stupid that. So let me give you the background. In 19, when in order for a amendment to the Constitution to be ratified, it has to be ratified by three-quarters of the states. And in the case of the United States, with 50 states, three-quarters of 50 is 38. Well, but before an amendment goes out to the states to be ratified, Congress has to approve the wording of the amendment. So Congress in 1972 approved the wording of the proposed 28th Amendment. But when they initially sent that out to the states for ratification, they put a 10-year ratification limit. They said, but you have to ratify this by 1982. Well, it was not until November of 2020, and so 1982 came and went. They didn't have the 38 states, and a couple years after that deadline, a few more states trickled on. It was more symbolic because once you missed the 1982 deadline, the fact that your state in 1990 ratified it was meaningless because you were past the deadline. Well, don't ask me how it got on the Virginia state ballot in 2020, uh, but somebody maybe symbolically wanted it on the Virginia ballot just as a statement of Virginia. Well, in November of 2020, when Trump was still president, Virginia became the 38th state to ratify that proposed amendment, but that approval came 37 years after the ratification deadline. Now, had Virginia's ratification been valid, that means the approval of the Equal Rights Amendment as the 28th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution would have occurred during who was president in November of 2020? Was it Joe Biden?
No,
It
it
was
was
Donald
Trump.
Donald Trump. So had Virginia's ratification vote been valid, it would have been approved under Donald Trump's presidency, not under Joe
Yeah,
Biden's presidency. So
yeah, he didn't become president until 21.
right, Biden didn't become president until January of 2021. So here's my question. No, did the person who wrote the speech, and of course Biden's staff who reviews and edits his speeches, review did they know how glaringly incorrect that claim was, or were they all that ignorant that they actually believed it? What do you think?
Well, I mean, also too, the like it's fairly common knowledge. There's only 27 amendments. Like, I mean, his staff writers are supposed to be educated, especially when it comes to laws and government.
Right. And that vote happened 4 years earlier in November of 2020. And here he is in January of 25 saying that the Equal Rights Amendment has been ratified as now the law of the land. No, Joe, it isn't. It absolutely, by the way, there's also another story where Speaker of the House Mike Johnson met with him and asked him privately, why did you sign this executive order banning the shipment of liquefied natural gas to Europe?
Oh yeah.
Because now they're buying all their natural gas from Russia. He said, I didn't sign that order. I didn't sign any such order. And Speaker Johnson, he said, yes, you did. No, I didn't. So he finally pulled it out and said and read it to him verbatim. And he said, no, I signed an order approving the study of shipments of, and and he kept insisting to Speaker Johnson that no, I never signed any such order. And finally, uh, Speaker Johnson had the text of the order. He said, Mr. President, here's the order that you signed. And Biden was kind of dumbstruck. He apparently people were putting orders and executive orders in front of him, and he was signing them, and he had no idea what he was signing. How sad is
Yeah,
that?
you're supposed to read things before you sign them.
Yeah. So he had no idea because when that happened, when you ban the shipments of natural gas from the U.S., the only other source is Russia. So they were basically by signing that order banning LNG exports, they were helping Russia because that's a major source of revenue for Russia. And so
I also
Biden,
heard he pardoned 5 additional family members too.
5 additional family members, yeah, people you never heard of, his brother, his brother's wife, his sister. I mean,
And
he
my question is his family that corrupt that he needs to pardon his whole family?
right. And by the way, Dr. Fauci. And by the way, there's a Supreme Court case that goes back, I think it's verdict, that says if you accept the pardon, that is an admission of guilt. So all
Uh,
those people, including Dr. Fauci, who accepted those pardons, they were basically admitting to some sort of criminal guilt.
well, I mean, some of his pardons were for future crimes that they haven't
No,
yet
no, no, no.
been accused
Crimes
of.
they haven't been. No, you can't pardon them for things that happened after the pardon date. You can pardon them for
But
crimes they
for
haven't been
future prosecution.
right, that they haven't been
Yeah.
charged with. But if they commit a crime tomorrow, that's not covered by the pardon. But it does pardon. It's called a preemptive pardon that says we're pardoning
Yeah.
for any crimes you may have committed from 2014 to the date of the pardon. But it doesn't pardon them going forward. So if they commit a new crime tomorrow, that it doesn't protect them. But yeah, it was called a preemptive pardon, and they all accepted. Fauci, General Milley, his family members all accepted those pardons. He also pardoned the entire January 6th committee that launched that witch trial, that trial against Trump. So, and they all accept, every single one of them accepted the pardon. So, anyway, moving on. Runner up to the stupidest thing I've heard all week. In Topanga Canyon is a big state park next to Pacific Palisades where the fire was.
Mhm.
Well, in 2019, the Los Angeles Fire District decided, we need to create an access road and a fire break in that park because right now, if a fire breaks out in the park, there's no fire break and there's no access road for firefighting equipment to get in. So they brought in bulldozers to start creating an access road, a fire road, and a fire break. I don't know if you've ever been to a state park and seen a dirt road in the middle of a state
Yep.
park.
Yep.
It's called a fire road, and it's there to do a fire break. Well, and you know what a milkweed plant is?
Yes.
If you break it, you get this white gooey sap, and it's
Yeah.
these big pods. And if you break the
Yep.
pod open, it's got all these white puffy things
Yep.
that get picked up by the wind. Well, this environmental group sued the city and county of Los Angeles uh, because this milkweed was apparently an endangered species. And not only did they sue them to stop, they also sued for punitive damages. And the court awarded the environmental group $2 million, which was paid for by the city and county of Los Angeles. And they got a permanent injunction preventing them from doing any more fire mitigation work in Topanga Garden.
I didn't realize that milkweed was an endangered
Well,
plant.
they claim this particular variant was. Anyway, so here we are. So we go ahead, we jump ahead 4 years or 5 years later, and the whole freaking park burns down.
Ugh.
And because there was no fire road and fire break, Pacific, 10,000 homes are lost.
Yeah. Well, I
So,
mean, that's not the only reason. There are so many things. It was the perfect storm of so many things didn't happen
right,
that caused these fires
and
to get out of control.
but this might have helped. Might have
Help,
helped. I'm not saying
yes.
it would have, but it might have helped. And by the way, do you think there's any protected milkweeds left in that park now that the whole park?
Oh, no, nothing.
None. So
Yeah.
all of this was for naught because every one of those plants has been burned to a crisp.
Yeah,
So
there have been so many things that people have called out that could have not prevent the fires from happening, but they would have helped prevent the spread and
yeah,
causing some.
mitigation. So yeah. So again, environmentalists, stopped and got a permanent injunction. No, you can't build any more fire roads in Topanga Park. So I think that qualifies for the stupidest thing I've heard all week because, and they got their $2 million, by the way. Whatever this group was, they got their $2 million paycheck, but they may have made the devastation of the fires worse. So here's our stupidest runner-up I've heard all week. City of Boston, with your tax dollars, is going to be buying 125 all-electric school buses paid for by a $35 million federal grant. Now, in case you don't have your calculator handy, that works out to $280,000 per bus, which is 3 times what a normal diesel engine powered bus costs. They're about 70,000 and 80,000 a piece. Now, let's talk about how the electricity to thousands of buses will be generated. Well, guess what? 75% of the power in Boston comes from natural gas. The other 25% is nuclear, which is always brought online first. And nuclear is always running 100%. So any additional load you put on the grid in Boston is handled by burning more natural gas. Um, So what's going to happen now? Those $280,000 electric buses will, in essence, be powered by natural gas, which is a fossil fuel. Now, if you're going to power your school buses with natural gas, why not power them directly with clean burning CNG, compressed natural gas, that is already widely used in city buses and garbage trucks and airport shuttles at
Our
a
entire
price?
city fleet is on CNG.
I'm sorry, your entire city?
Our entire city fleet is run on CNG, and we were the first city in the entire country to be 100% CNG on our city
So
fleet.
every bus in the city of State College is
Yep.
a CN bus.
Yep.
Okay. And I know my garbage truck that comes up and down my street is a CNG bus.
And I know we're not as big as Boston. We have about 60 buses, but we're a mid-sized city, but I think that's pretty nice that.
Well, 60 is still twice as many. They were only buying 35
Oh.
buses. They remember, I'm sorry, I take it back, 125. Um, so if you're going to power your buses with natural gas, by the way, when you burn natural gas at a power plant and then try to transmit it over wires, you get something called a line loss. I think we've talked about this in the past. So only 55% of the power in the natural gas ever makes it to the wall socket. So you actually wind up using more natural gas when you burn it directly to convert it to electricity to send it through lines and transformers to get to a recharging station. So uh, had they simply said, yeah, we're going to get away from diesel and power these buses with CNG, which, by the way, $140,000 bus, which is half the cost of electric buses, which means they could have bought twice as many CNG powered, clean burning. By the way, CNG is incredibly clean powered.
Yeah.
Diesel, you can get black smoke. CNG is absolutely clean. Yeah, I don't know if
You
you
get water, it's water vapor that comes out of the tailpipe of the buses.
water vapor, CNG. So that's my second runner up for the stupidest
Well,
thing I've heard.
and we've talked about this many times on the show before about all these big electric vehicles that they just don't have the power. Now, Boston being in New England, it is currently, we're not in New England. You're in Jersey, I'm in Pennsylvania. We're mid-Atlantic.
Right.
It is going to be -2 here tonight.
Yep.
Boston is in New England. It's a lot colder up in Boston. I actually just looked, it's surprisingly warmer in Boston today than it is here. But generally speaking, Boston is a very cold in the wintertime during the school season.
Yep.
And this weather wreaks havoc on
On
batteries.
yeah, on the battery life. Yeah, because not only, by the way, do you get less mileage, you have to run the heater to keep the kids warm. And guess what the heaters run off of?
Yeah,
The batteries. So
yeah,
that's why. So it's a double whammy. So number one, the cold weather decreases the output of the batteries, and it also and because you're running the electric heaters, it also drains them quicker.
yeah.
So anyway, you want to hear what Bill Maher thinks of how Los Angeles handled the fires?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if he was even one of the celebrities that lost his house or
I
not.
don't think he lost his home, but he lives out there. So here's Bill Maher.
Plan for putting out a burning city than waiting for rain.
Wait a minute, let me back that.
America is so partisan now that
let me
even
back
when
this
they're
up.
able to do much about the weather, but we do need a better plan for putting out a burning city than waiting for rain. America is so partisan now that even when there's a disaster of any kind, so many people choose to defend their own team, even over death. A lot of Democrats in this one party state this week went right to don't blame politicians. You can't do anything about the wind, which is exactly half true. The wind part. Yes, fire is a tough fight out here. And yes, global warming absolutely makes it worse. But that's largely out of our control. What are we going to do? Pass a ballot measure to make sure Chinese stop burning coal? It's also, yes, undeniably true that LA is built in a stupid place to build a city. But when it's not on fire, it's really quite lovely. And it's my home. And stupid as its origin may be, it's not going anywhere. Axios ran a story on how getting the water out of the hydrants in Pacific Palisades was more complicated than it seems. I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's very complicated. That's why I pay 13% of my income in the state every year to people who I assumed were working on things like this. Why so many of the hydrants in the Palisades ran out of water, Governor Newsom said the local folks are trying to figure that out. Yeah, you got to do that before the fire. At least in the Palisades, the hydrants were still there. 300 other ones around the city are just gone, stolen for parts. One of the three reservoirs for the Palisades was offline at the one time of year when it was most needed. LA's Mayor Karen Bass, the Nero of American politics, was fiddling in Ghana while the city burned and later placed the blame on 8 months of negligible rain and winds that have not been seen in LA in at least 14 years. Yeah, that's not that long a time. Maybe look in the history books to see how our ancestors handled it back in 2 and 11. The mayor said about cuts to the fire department's budget, there were no reductions that were made that would have impacted the situation. The fire chief here had a slightly different take. She said, "We are screaming to be properly funded. And yes, the budget was cut and it did impact our ability to provide service. And by the looks of all the fire engines in the boneyard out of service because we didn't fix them, she's right. Exposed power lines keep causing fires and keep not getting buried underground because it's expensive. I've heard people say, do you want to pay more taxes to fund this? No, I want you to use the exorbitant taxes you already collect to prioritize it.
So what do you think of Bill Maher?
Yeah, I mean, he hit again. There wasn't one thing that could have helped to mitigate these fires, but it was a combination of things. One of the things I didn't hear him say, that I think was one of the big ones, was the dams to collect the snow melt rather
Right.
than let the water.
Never got built. Never got built.
Had they had those dams, they would have water in the reservoir to help put the fires out.
We talked about that last week. They
Yeah.
10 years ago, voters approved 7.5 billion bond issue to
Yeah.
build dams. 10 years later, not a single dam's been built. Hey, how much
And
time?
again, even if they had those dams, that wouldn't. We've got like 10, 13 minutes.
Okay.
Even if they had the dams, though, I mean, these fires still would have been devastating, but they wouldn't have been as bad.
You never know if they had the fire road, if they had more water. But that one reservoir I was talking about had been drained for more than a year for repairs to the basin. So, but they left it empty for a year. They had a reservoir that was empty for a year. Anyway, poor planning. All right, I want to move on to Trump tax plan. By the way, everybody, Democrat, the Trump tax plan contributed. Well, the Trump tax plan that went into effect on January 1 of 2018, it was a tax rate cut. And what people don't understand, there's a difference between cutting tax rates and cutting tax revenues. Most people don't understand, and Reagan proved this the first time. Reagan cut tax rates by 40%. And after he did that, because of the economic stimulus, tax revenues soared. Well, the same thing has happened with the 2018 Trump tax plan that cut tax rates. But if you total up the 12 months of 2024, you come up with a total tax revenue figure of 4.9 trillion, which is a new all-time record high for tax revenues, and it's a 46.35% increase from 2017, which was the last year of the old Obama tax plan. So since it went into effect, not only didn't tax revenues go down, they're hitting new all-time highs. And by the way, the last year of the old Obama era tax plan, tax revenues were increasing at a pathetic rate of less than 3.2% per year. So the 46.3% increase since 2017 is a massive home run for tax revenues despite the tax rate cuts. Now, but then how come the deficit keeps increasing? Well, 46.35% increase in tax revenues is pretty impressive, right? Oh, and by the way, and corporate tax rates got cut by 40%. Do you know that corporate tax revenues are up for more than double? They went from 230 billion the year before the Trump tax plan went into effect. They're now at 530 billion. That's a 130% increase in tax revenues. So if we're getting all these if we're getting just swamped with increasing tax revenues, why does the deficit keep and the national debt keep growing? Well, you want to guess how much spending has grown since 2000?
Oh, it's been exponential.
It's up 72.11%.
Wow.
Again, tax revenues up 46%, spending up 72%.
You
It's
can't
just,
spend more than you're bringing in.
no. I mean, mind-boggling that spending has grown 72% in 7 years. That's an annual increase of roughly 10% per year. 72% increase in spending since the end of 2017. Again, 46% growth in revenues, 72.11% in spending. So that's why we are where we are, and that's why our national debt keeps growing by 2 trillion a year, and that's why President Biden, and with his help from Elon Musk, needs to start cutting hundreds of billions of dollars out of our budget. Because last week we talked about some of the stupid things, right? We wound up last week with some 5 examples of 5 stupid things we're wasting money on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
all
and
right.
that's just the tip of the iceberg.
I'm sorry. The tip of
That's
the ice, yeah, just the tip of the iceberg. And by the way, and spending $35 million on 125 electric, if City of Boston wants electric school buses, let them buy their own freaking school buses. I mean, that's just another example. So, hey, I know we're running short on time. How much time we got?
Oh, we're good. We have like 10 minutes.
Oh, okay. Well, let's move on to our taxpayer relief shots. And we call them taxpayer relief shots. I'll let the sheriff of Santa Rosa County, Florida, tell you why he calls them a taxpayer relief shot. Here we go.
Somebody's breaking in your house, you're more than welcome to shoot them in Santa Rosa County. We prefer that you do, actually. Hopefully, you'll save the taxpayers money.
And then, of course, we've got our favorites, Grady Judd. Here's one I think you like.
Well, we have received information in social media that some of the criminals were going to take their criminal conduct into the neighborhoods. I would tell them, if you value your life, you probably shouldn't do that in Polk County, because the people of Polk County like guns. They have guns. I encourage them to own guns, and they're going to be in their homes tonight with their guns loaded. And if you try to break into their homes to steal, to set fires, I'm highly recommending they blow you back out of the house with their guns.
All right, and we have one more from Grady, Sheriff Judd.
I would highly suggest that if a looter breaks into your home, comes into your home while you're there to steal stuff, that you take your gun and you shoot him. You shoot him so that he looks like grated cheese.
So do you like the grated cheese one or blow you back out of the
Yeah, they both have their own merits.
Okay. All right. So let's go to Jackson, Mississippi, where this guy wakes up. He hears something at his home. It's 2:30 in the morning. It's pitch black. And here we go.
Back against crime, killing a home invader and wounding a second suspect. It happened on Rosemary Avenue, right off Cooper Road in South Jackson. 16 WABT's Jennifer Ortega joins us right now from where it happened. Jennifer. The scene's clear now, but earlier this morning, police were out here investigating a deadly shooting. Around 2:30 Friday morning, the man that lives in this house found two men breaking in and took deadly action.
The homeowner confronted them. He shot one individual several times. The second one was able to escape through a window.
19-year-old John Quest Porter died, but Romello Porter managed to escape. Police found him a few houses down the street, shot in the leg.
I think it's traumatic when a homeowner has to take this particular measure.
And this is the sheriff, by the way, speaking.
But again, you're certainly entitled to defend yourself and defend your home.
We knocked on several doors to see if anyone saw anything, but got no answer. Many of the homes are abandoned or empty.
The consequences are becoming deadly for those who tend or want to enter somebody else's property uninvited. And the law provides for property owners to take this action.
In Mississippi, the law says you can use deadly force to protect your personal space, your home, and your car from an intruder. And police say that Jonquez and Romello could be related. Romello will be facing home invasion charges once he's out of the hospital. Live in Jackson, Jennifer Ortega, 16 WAPT News.
Well, since they both have the same last name, Porter, I think that's a pretty good guess that they're related. What do you think?
I mean, that is a pretty common name, so hard to say.
Right. Anyway, anything you want to add before we sign off?
There was another big event that happened yesterday. Yesterday was it was MLK Day, it was Inauguration Day, and it was also the championship football playoff game yesterday. It was Ohio State and Notre Dame.
All right. You think Penn State could have beat Ohio State if they made it to the finals?
But, we did lose to them this season, and when your team is not playing, you're always supposed to root for your conference, but I just couldn't root for Ohio State. even if it was Ohio State. So I was rooting for Notre Dame, but sadly, yeah, I don't think.
Yeah,
I think we had a tough loss against Notre Dame, but yeah, we probably would have lost to Ohio State too. Yeah. And this past weekend, there was a couple of big NFL games. Now, Jerzee Joe, I know your wife, she's both an Eagles fan and a Chiefs fan. If the Eagles and the Chiefs end up playing each other in the Super Bowl, who's she going to root for?
I think she's going to have to go with the Eagles, so that's where she was born. So I think, and plus we have she made me buy when I went to the casino. They have the sport. She made me buy a ticket for the Eagles to win the Super Bowl. So if they win the Super Bowl, she wins $550. So I think she's rooting. I said, "You want me to buy one for the Chiefs too?" She said, "No, just the Eagles." So she's.
Well, we'll see what that turns out this weekend. And I can't root for the Eagles. Because I was born and raised a Giants fan, but I will root for Saquon because
yeah,
are Penn State.
Yeah, yes, Penn State grad. All right. Anything else you want to add?
Nope.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody who listened to me for giving up 30 minutes out of your busy day to listen to me ramble on about things I find of interest and importance. And I hope you found those topics as interesting and important as I did. And if so, hope you continue to listen to this podcast in the weeks and months to come. If you want to see some materials and story links you heard me talk about today, give producer Susan a day or two, and you can find them on the Jerzee Joe show website at jerzeejoe.com, with Jerzee being spelled J-E-R as in Robert, Z as in zebra, E-E, Jerzee, jerzeejoe.com. If you want to send me an email with a comment, question, or a suggested show topic, you can do that by sending me an email to just joe@jerzeejoe.com. Just remember to spell Jerzee Joe with an R, a Z, and two E's. And other than that, producer Susan, if you got nothing else, I'll sign off and talk to you next week. You good?
Stay warm. Stay warm.
Too. All right, you take care. Bye-bye.